morning. Welcome into 104.5 The Zone. Morale is high. It's the start of another game week. Are you ready? You ready to go through it again?
This week has been so deja vu, right? Because Monday we were talking about the exact same thing we were talking about the Monday after the Bears game. And then we had to get over the, traumatizing events. And then Wednesday we're talking about turning the page. We're moving on. No more crippling turnovers. No more blocked punts. We're looking ahead.
I told you last week that I don't ever listen back to the show, but for some twisted and bizarre reason, I felt compelled to listen back to last week's Monday and this week's Monday to see just how exactly the same and how much foreshadowing was done after the week one result heading into week two. Brother, it'll make you cringe. It'll make your skin crawl for how similar these conversations are. But yet again, Wednesday of game week, what are you making faces about? What happened? What's wrong?
Oh, no, that's just my face. Just watching Drew Carey do his thing.
You looked delighted, surprised, slashed post-coital. I'm not sure what happened to you
there. Trip to Portugal on the line over here.
Okay. We can't have eye candy in the studio like The Price is Right on the televisions. Otherwise, we can't do the radio show. Jackson, Lucas, and I are here with you until 1 o'clock. 615-737-1045. Is the number. If you want to jump in, we'd be happy to have you. Titans will be on the practice field later. I'll head out there. We'll do the whole damn thing again, and we'll see if the results aren't different by the end of next week. Will Levis will speak to the media today, as will Brian Callahan. We will carry that press conference live for you. How many questions, over, under, we'll do this as a combined total between Callahan and Levis's press conference today. How many total questions are asked about the quarterback's job security in week 3?
Oh, I think one.
The one?
Yeah, just if even that. I just don't think that's a huge headline right now. I'm not considering it at the moment, and I don't think the franchise is really considering it at the moment.
No, I know that they are not considering it, but does the question bear asking, hey, how many more times you're going to go through this before, there's legitimate consequences on the other side for the person whose mistakes everybody's focused on trying to get corrected? That I don't think is an unfair question. And I would be curious to know if those questions start with Brian Callahan and Will Levis today, or if it takes another week, because if they lose to Malik Willis and the Green Bay Packers, all hell's going to break loose. And that's not a smile out of excitement or a chuckle. I just don't even know what we would do. I don't know what we would do on Monday if that happened, other than just everything melts down around us in week 3 of the NFL season.
You wonder how many conversations have happened between Callahan and Levis where it's been, listen, this is your job. We've come into the season with this being your job. But if you keep doing this, we can't in good conscience keep putting you out there, because there's a whole football team of guys that mostly are doing their jobs to win, and we need to do what's best to win. I know that's kind of the antithesis of what you and I have talked about this season, not necessarily being about getting to win 9 games, but finding out about Will Levis. But there does have to be a breaking point somewhere, right? When you've got players all over the field, especially defensively. The Titans have allowed the fewest amount of yards through 2 weeks than any team in the NFL. And they're 0-2. Last time that happened was 1994.
Where'd you steal that stat from?
Jordan DeJani, my buddy, CBS Sports.
Oh, find him.
Yeah.
Find him right now.
Go ahead. Put it in the bucket. But there does, as much as this season is about Will Levis and finding out what you have in Will Levis, there does have to be a breaking point, right? At some point, if this continues, what we saw from the first 2 weeks. Even though he was better outside of the crippling mistakes, but he can be phenomenal, and the crippling mistakes can still lose you games.
You asked the question, you wonder how many times Will Levis and Brian Callahan have had that kind of a conversation. Shall I read directly from the press conference on Sunday night? Do you think he's trying to be a hero when he does these things, is the question that's asked to Brian Callahan. Callahan responds, I hope not. I've told him 1,000,000 times at this point that you're 1 of 11. Just do your part. And that's all that really anybody's asking of you. And so some of that stuff we're trying to work out of him. He did slide today, in case anybody cared about that.
He did. He didn't really slide, but he avoided contact.
You yelled at me when I said that yesterday. Get the hell out of here.
He avoided contact. It was a big step.
Say avoided contact.
It was a big step.
I wouldn't call it a dive. It was more of he threw himself to the ground.
Yeah, he went down. It was a big step, and he did it twice.
He didn't let the linebacker do it. He was like, hey, I got this. I'll do it for you. I'll throw myself to the ground.
But no, he's just got to do a better job, and it's on me to keep coaching him. I got to do a better job. Something's not quite making sense because we keep having it happen, and ultimately that's on me.
Also, we have to, I know the question was about Levis trying to be the hero. We got to stop talking about what he's done in the last 2 games as hero ball, because that's not what that's been.
No, it's what the F are you doing?
Yeah, it's bad football. It's not hero ball. It's not trying to do too much or trying to
I don't even like backyard football.
Right.
Because like backyard football, it doesn't connote, hey, stupid, don't do that.
Is it villain ball?
Well, it's not going to get him any bonus points with the fan base right now, because the fan base is, I don't know, somewhere between take it easy, it's week 2, and, oh, my God, sit him down. Mason Rudolph would be 2-0.
Meanwhile, this defense is playing really well. I know they haven't forced a turnover, but statistically, the number 1 defense in the league through 2 weeks. And I'm fascinated to see as you go from Caleb Williams, rookie in his first NFL game, to Aaron Rodgers, opposite of a rookie in his millionth NFL game, to Malik Willis, who you've seen be sped up by the game around him and by a defense, and who Denard Wilson has faced multiple times in training camp practices.
You can interact with the show on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch if you would like. If you want to call us, 615-737-1045 is the number. On YouTube, Benjamin says, we are still fuming over Levis's screw-up, just logged on. Yeah, I mean, until he stops doing it, that's the conversation. It's a solid enough football team around him, but until the quarterback stops making bonehead decisions, then, yes, that is the discussion that is had until such time as you can trust that he will not or will limit his mistakes.
If it wasn't for that decision, we'd be talking about how he made progress. He was better in week 2 than he was in week 1. He wasn't great. Would they have won the game? I don't know. But he didn't do that, so we are talking about panic ball, as Steve in the F&M Bank chat puts it.
I also see some comments from Brandon Scott. He says, I want to know why Simmons was more aggressive with Buck than he has with NFL offensive lines, because they are double and triple teaming him. Jeff Simmons is not a problem. Because I saw some of that start on Sunday. Like, at some point, Jeff Simmons needs to make a play on Twitter or something like that. And I'm looking at the way that teams are queuing, specifically on Jeff. And yeah, at some point, make a play. You're the best player on the football team for sure. I'm with that. I'm not absolving Jeff Simmons of a lack of statistical output or anything like that. But they are specifically game planning to stop Jeff. So if they can stop Jeff, or if they can throw enough bodies, Chicago, we talked about this with B-Hop on the pregame show. When the hell have you ever seen an NFL offensive line triple block one player? The way that the Bears just threw 3 bodies at him to try and stop him in week 1. So let's not get crazy and try to place blame where blame is not yet deserved. Will there be a time when you know what's fair criticism of Jeff Simmons? Don't yank the quarterback's face mask on 3rd and 15. That is a fair criticism. The rest of the game, Jeff was fine. 615-737-1045 is the number. We'll get to your phone calls throughout the course of the show today. We're also going to pivot back and forth between college football because it's a huge week. It's a huge week for the University of Tennessee. This game against Oklahoma, is it the biggest game of Josh Heupel's career to date? It's an interesting question that came up this morning. Also, just kind of jumping back and forth between Titans and Vols. To the Titans part of things, locker room is open today. Nicholas Petit-Frere, I'm assuming, is going to be asked questions about his side gig as a fantasy football analyst. So we can look forward to those questions from the coach, whose press conference will carry, and the response from the player in the post-practice locker room today. So we will see how all those things play out. Heupel's homecoming. How big a deal is this for this Tennessee coach in the scope of his career? We'll talk about it next. Did you know you can now use your own body's healing properties to revitalize your achy joints and get you real lasting pain relief? I'm talking about advanced regenerative medicine at QC Kinetics. If you're tired of arthritic pain in your knees, hips, back, or shoulder, it's something you need to check out. Everybody's talking about regenerative medicine, and the local medical professionals at QC Kinetics are experts in these amazing treatments. People here in Middle Tennessee have raved about the results. You can enhance your joints, improve mobility, and get back to doing the stuff that you love without pain, without drugs, without surgery, or downtime. Under the leadership of Medical Director Dr. Mitchell Shinecup, QC Kinetics is the nation's leader in this exciting breakthrough using cellular therapies. They've got tens of thousands of satisfied patients, and the consultation is totally free. So call now. Take action to get lasting joint pain relief with help from QC Kinetics. 615-249-4024, 615-249-4024 in Nashville, Clarksville, and Murfreesboro. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken, 615-737-1045, the number. So, Josh Heupel, is he going home to Oklahoma? Because Oklahoma is not where he's from, but God knows they're going to make it seem like that this week.
Missed opportunity to come back to that song from Twisters that y'all were talking about yesterday.
You didn't know about it until yesterday.
I didn't.
Now it's a missed opportunity.
What was it called?
Luke Combs, Ain't No Love in Oklahoma.
That's right. I benched you yesterday. Welcome back.
You didn't bench me.
No, I benched you.
You didn't bench me.
I benched you.
No, you didn't.
Yes.
It's okay, Jackson. I called out the lie.
I appreciate you, Lucas.
We're doing this thing now because I benched you yesterday, so you don't know this. Anytime that one of us lies, Lucas is using it as a tool for me, but I think it should be a show-wide rule that anytime one of us hears the other one lie, you just yell, lie!
I'm down. I'll just start yelling lies, but when are you going to get a word in, bud? I'll just be yelling lies for 3 hours.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good by Jackson. When are you going to get a word in? It is a homecoming for Josh Heupel. He is going home. This is the place that made him as a player and as a coach. So, yes, I, as a Tennessee alum, am perfectly okay with saying this is Josh Heupel going home, and he's answering questions that way.
So, let's hear from Josh Heupel, because he's not the most expansive human being in a press conference setting, but he understands the emotional significance. He also understands the importance to not just the fan base that he currently coaches for, but he's got a lot of love for the University of Oklahoma and the Sooners fans and everybody that he helped win a national title for. So let's hear from Josh Heupel about going back to Oklahoma.
Well, let's go ahead and get to it.
What are you going to talk about?
Let's talk about Nebraska. You go back into Norman. Have you thought about the emotions when you walk into that stadium?
Yeah, it'll be unique. I had teammates and friends back there. They hit me up a little bit early. They were starting last week already. It'll be unique going back into that stadium. It's going to be a viewpoint. I'm not sure I've ever spent a day on the opposing sideline inside of that stadium, not even for a scrimmage. So it'll be different, but it's one that I'm really looking forward to. There's so many people that have been a huge part of my journey that I get a chance to go back and hopefully get a chance to say hi to a bunch of them. It starts with teammates. It's coaches that I had. It's a lot of coaches that I coached with. There's a lot of personnel that's still there. Guys that I coached. Guy that was in my wedding. There's a lot of people back there that I'm familiar with and have a lot of respect for.
How comfortable are you with the Oklahoma questions this week? I know you like to focus so much on your team.
I thought I handled the first one really well. So I'm good with any question about Oklahoma. Like the opportunity that I got, from Bob and from Mike to come there and play, what we were able to build there in a short amount of time as a player. But then my coaching career, from the guys that I played for to all the coaches that were there during my career, all made a huge impact on me. And I wouldn't be here today at Tennessee if I didn't have all those experiences. So tremendously grateful for all those people. And Brent is somebody that, I learned and grew from as a young coach so much, and a ton of respect for him.
So really good there by Josh Heupel.
You can tell that there is a deep appreciation there for that place.
Oh, sure. And it's really well documented. Lucas pointed this out to me this morning, and to be honest, it was so thoroughly reported that I did not have the opportunity to make it all the way through this article on ESPN.com by Jake Trotter and Chris Lowe. But basically detailing all the different reasons why Josh Heupel is Oklahoma royalty and how this is one of the culminating moments of a guy's life's work, right? This game at Tennessee and Oklahoma, it's not a national championship. It's a big SEC game, big game between two ranked teams, and Tennessee has national championship aspirations. I don't know what the vibe would be around Sooners fans and their football team right now. There's probably a bit of resignation to the injuries that they continue to sustain and
haven't looked good the last couple of weeks. There's probably a tense feeling right now that they're hoping things get right this weekend.
So it isn't the most important game, but it is a hugely important game for this specific human being, who's in charge of restoring your program to greatness after leading the other program that he will be up against to one of its finest moments in a long and storied history of football success.
Its last national championship was with him as a quarterback. Think about this as full circle. Not only was Brent Venables on that Oklahoma staff when Josh Heupel was a quarterback, but Josh Heupel, kind of the final straw, and maybe this decision was made before and it would have happened anyway, but one of the final straws in Josh Heupel's last game on the sideline as an assistant, as the offensive coordinator at Oklahoma, was getting blown out by Clemson in a bowl game in which Brent Venables was calling defense, and Brent Venables' defense dominated Josh Heupel and Oklahoma's offense that day. Heupel was fired from there, and it was a big blow to him. And a lot of people close to him talk about how painful that was for him and how hard it was for Bob Stoops to do that for a player that won him a national championship as a quarterback. And here we all are full circle with Heupel going up against Venables, head coach on head coach in Norman. It's the type of stuff that makes college football storylines so cool. I can't wait to see what this environment is like, because this is not going to be like a Lane Kiffin coming back to Neyland for the first time at Tennessee situation.
No,
right?
this is a crowning achievement. This is a moment of cultural appreciation from Sooners fans.
This is like if Peyton Manning, or the better example, T. Martin, who won a national championship as a quarterback at Tennessee and is a coach currently on the Ravens staff. If T. Martin was a head coach at a power conference program and he led a team into Neyland Stadium, what that reception would be like pregame, and they'd probably honor the 98 national championship team, and it would be a big thing, and then you'd start the game. That's what it's going to be like in Norman. I'm so fascinated to see how they're able to transition from love and appreciation and whatever highlight they play on the Jumbotron, because they are honoring that national championship team on Saturday in the stadium, and then how they transition that into, okay, bloodthirsty, we want to take your head off, we need to win this game mode for that crowd.
It's football, right? That pivot is fairly easy, I feel like, for football fans. Like, it's all lovey-dovey in pregame and at halftime when they have the moment, but between the whistles, I'm going to kick your ass. Like, that's what it is, or I'm going to try to. Like, Vols fans should want Josh Heupel to rip out the heart and soul of the Oklahoma fan base in front of them, and the last team to win a national championship, and have to eat it. What's the movie? With Indiana Jones style, right? You got to reach into his chest, pull out his heart, and then eat it in front of him. That's what you're doing here. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm jealous of Reed, that Reed is going to this game. It sounds like it's going to be an electric atmosphere. I know a lot of Vols fans. I'm curious to see, obviously Oklahoma's going to pack it out. It's a huge moment for them.
First ever SEC game as a member of the SEC.
For sure. But I bet there's a pretty significant, or as many as they'll let be in that stadium, a pretty significant contingent of Vols fans make that trip.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. There's going to be a ton. There were a bunch the last time Tennessee went to Norman, which wasn't that long ago. Tennessee had a home-and-home with Oklahoma in 14 and 15. That 2015 game at Neyland Stadium was, for me, as a student, the loudest I ever heard Neyland Stadium, and a heartbreaking loss, Baker's coming-out party that night. But I slightly disagree with one thing you said, because you said it's not the most important game, but it's up there. And I think there's a scenario where it does end up being the most important game of Tennessee's season, because it's an expectation-altering game. If Tennessee wins on Saturday, you look down the rest of the schedule and you say every single game feels winnable. There's obviously the big two with Alabama and Georgia. But if you beat Oklahoma, you could lose to Alabama and Georgia and still probably get into the playoff at 10-2. If you apply the current format to last year and create a 12-team playoff based on the rules, the automatic qualifiers, all of those things, in 2023, there would not have been a team worse than 10-2 in the 12-team playoff. Everybody was 10-2 or better. Of the conference champs, of the teams that finished in the top 12, all of those things. So this is such a huge game in that if you drop this one, you simply have to beat either Alabama or Georgia. If Tennessee were to lose to Oklahoma and Alabama and Georgia, we'd be looking back at the Oklahoma game saying, That is what knocked them out of the playoff. They couldn't get it done in Norman in a winnable game on the road. And that's why they're not playing in the college football playoff. So this game is massive because if Tennessee wins, we're talking about the expectation being take care of business, go at worst 10-2 by beating the Kentuckys and the Mississippi States and the pesky Arkansas and getting into the playoff.
Well, okay. Yeah, I get your perspective, but you're a 7-point road favorite. You know what I'm saying? Like that's why, at least from my standpoint, you should win this football game. It's a winnable football game.
Oh, yeah. No.
The expectation is that you win the football game, and then you deal with the Alabama and Georgia. So, like, the stakes of it, because it's the first real tone setter of the season for Tennessee, right? NC State could have been, I guess, but that didn't really turn into what you... I mean, it did turn into what you wanted it to be as a Tennessee fan. It was a lopsided result where the quarterback didn't even look that good, and you still went out there and won in a big spot. Oklahoma's not the NC State game to me necessarily, but I don't think it's like, I don't put it on the same plane as Alabama and Georgia because that to me still means, like, if you lose to Oklahoma, then I'm not taking you as seriously as you want to be taken. Mm-hmm. You know, like right now I'm taking you as seriously as you want to be taken. And I don't care that you're averaging 59 points a game or whatever it is against Cupcakes. Like, I'm taking you seriously. You're a national championship contending team as we sit here today. If you lose to Oklahoma, then I'm going to look at you a lot differently. Right now, I'm looking at you like you're a 7-point road favorite. Go out there and win a damn football game.
But I think right now people are doing that with Tennessee because you're starting to see that pop up, like big college football voices, Barrett Sallee, Ari Wasserman, all these guys that cover the sport that are talking about after the first 3 weeks, a Tennessee national championship contender with kind of a question mark at the end there.
Well, they've got a different kind of BVS. It's like I've trusted the Tennessee Vols too many times to actually put real faith in them kind of BVS, not the same kind that the Van. It's a variant.
Sure, but I think a lot of people are tenuously looking at Tennessee in that way right now because of how they've won in the first 3 weeks, understanding it's opponents they should be winning against. But if they do it against Oklahoma, a top 15 team that also came into the year with college football playoff aspirations and a 5-star quarterback and a good defense, then I think that conversation about the Vols will shift to taking that question mark off, right? And saying, okay, no, Tennessee's in that conversation as a national championship contender, especially after Georgia, doesn't look inspiring at Kentucky and everything sort of seems up for grabs in a season where we're entering a new era of an expanded playoff.
Let's hear from Oklahoma head coach Brent Venables, who also knows Josh Heupel really well, as documented many, many times over, and has a huge role to play in the reason that Josh Heupel is now the head coach at Tennessee because of the way that things ended at Oklahoma. So let's hear from Brent Venables.
Keely was coming out of whatever junior college, Mount Sac or somewhere, and he was the prototypical dude. I can't remember how big he was, but he was a big, strong, strapping dude that could spin it. He looked the part, could run, could pass, and we didn't know anything about Josh, but he was outside of the office windows. There's a quarterback. He's on a visit, and there's maybe 2 guys on a visit, and he was one of them. And he was outside we had an old turf field down there, and he was playing catch. And again, I'm saying this with incredible appreciation and respect for Josh. Couldn't have been more wrong. Don't judge a book by its cover. And he was skinny and just frail. And it was in the middle of winter, just kind of pasty. And the ball was coming on. It was southpaw. Probably hadn't played in a couple of months, and the ball was wobbly. Josh could occasionally do that, and we're like, that ain't it. And Leach, he didn't want to bring Keely Smith in on a visit. No, not interested. And so lesson learned. But Josh, amazing, work ethic and humility. Same guy every day. Didn't try to be anybody that he wasn't. Incredible, again, humility, respect for his teammates. But he bridged, and I don't know what the culture was like before we got here, so it's not really fair for me to say that he changed it, other than there was some brokenness, and he brought people together.
That's Brent Venables speaking about the small, frail,
Pasty.
quarterback, Josh Heupel, that he didn't want. That's funny. So, how are we feeling? Because I feel a little more chesty than you do right now, saying you're a 7-point road favorite, go win the game. Is there BVS?
No, from the first 3 weeks. The confidence is high right now. I'm not going to lie to you. The confidence is high for Tennessee. They've looked like the better team through the first 3 weeks of the season. I understand who they've been playing, but Oklahoma has not looked that way against teams of similar ilk, but quite honestly, teams, a couple notches below an NC State, like a Houston that's in a rebuild right now. Willie Fritz is a great head coach, 0-2 start at Houston, and Oklahoma kind of had to get a late safety to if pull away is even the word. They won that game by 4 at home. And then they had a commanding lead against Tulane over the weekend at home and threw a pick six to a linebacker, and suddenly Tulane's back in it, and it's a nervy situation. We've talked about the injuries. Their wide receiver core in particular has taken a lot of hits. They've had issues with pass protection, and Jackson Arnold, another 5-star quarterback, hasn't had the flashy start to the season that Nico has, and Nico hasn't even been throwing for 12 touchdowns and no picks, right? Like, Nico has been good and has had these eye-popping moments, but it's really the run game and the defense that have dominated for Tennessee in such fashion. So everything that's happened in the first 3 weeks makes it seem like a really good matchup for Tennessee on paper, but you just don't know when you get these guys on the field in a hostile environment with all the emotions around it. They're saying all the right things and blocking out the noise and all of that stuff, but that is something with Josh Heupel. The only true road game in a hostile environment that Tennessee has won under Heupel was that LSU game in 2022, an 11 a.m. game where Tennessee jumped out early and ran away with it. Ton of Tennessee fans in the building. So have yet to see them go on the road against a true top 15 opponent in a very hostile environment in the SEC and take care of business. That will be something that we'll see if they can overcome, especially early.
I'm scared.
There it is.
I feel like
I thought I smelled fear.
I feel like
somebody's BVS is acting up. It's like agita. You having a little flare up back there, huh?
Absolutely, because I agree with Lucas. This matchup is great for Tennessee on paper, and I've looked at it and I've tried to find something, and I feel like Tennessee's going to win this game, and that's where they always bite me.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is the definition of battered Vols syndrome.
Terrified.
I mean, you don't know. You don't know how college-age kids are going to react in a hostile environment for the first time, something they haven't had to face in the first 3 weeks. Brandon on the F&M Bank chat says, "Damn it, Jackson, hold it together."
Not doing great back here. I'm working on it.
It's gonna take winning this game to cure the BVS, or at least to tamp it down, to make it treatable at this point. Because there are people like Jackson, I'm sure, out there. There's a lot more people that are looking at this the way that I'm looking at this, which is, yeah, it's a good football team. They should win. But to Lucas's point, college sports are very, very difficult this way. Georgia should not have had the issues going into Kentucky the way that it did over the weekend. And they were able to pull it out because Georgia is a good enough football team to get that final touchdown drive at the end. But you can't predict how 18 and 19-year-old kids are going to react in hostile road environments that way, or at least as seamlessly as you think you should be able to. So we will find out. We didn't give ourselves enough time to talk about the talent fee.
That's right.
Should we do that?
10% talent fee.
How many observations do you have? Should we do that coming up next?
Let's do that. A couple to hit on from the football weekend, including some local ties playing quarterback in the SEC that had some pretty impressive starting debuts on Saturday. But yes, let's talk about the 10% tax, so to speak, that Tennessee put on its ticket prices for players.
I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
We are going to talk about the initiative that Danny White and Tennessee Athletics is moving forward with in terms of a 10% hike on ticket prices to pay student athletes. But first, let's talk a little bit about the football that happened over the weekend. I'd like to start with the best SEC game from the weekend. And we talked a little bit about South Carolina and LSU. That game, South Carolina fans will need therapy for, because that was as heartbreaking a loss as heartbreaking gets. If Lenoris Sellers does not leave injured, because LSU had no answer for Sellers in the run game, if he doesn't leave injured, then I think South Carolina wins that game. If a couple calls don't go against South Carolina, questionable
all on the
calls.
end of the drive or the final drive.
Specifically the pick six, though, by Garrett Nussmeier, who played really well in this game to bring LSU back. But that pick six, it didn't take away the interception, but it took away the points because he got hit and, he made a big show of it. What bothers me, though, at that point, you no longer get the treatment of a quarterback. You should be a defender at that point. You are a player trying to tackle another player, so you should be allowed to be blocked in that moment. I had a problem with that call. Anyway, LSU wins 36-33. Didn't really answer a lot of questions about LSU for me. Florida, we talked about. Terrible. Texas A&M comes into your place with a backup quarterback and is up 20-0 at halftime. This team is lifeless. The Billy Napier era is over. It's a matter of when and not if. If they lose to Mississippi State on the road this weekend, a team that just got blown out by Toledo on their home field, then I don't know that Billy Napier even makes it to the team plane back to Gainesville. Okay, let's give some local guys some love here, because we mentioned Texas A&M going into Gainesville with the backup quarterback. That backup quarterback in for the injured Connor Wegman is Marcel Reed from MBA. That is
Son
one
of former TSU coach Rod Reed.
That's right. Rod Reed, former coach at Tennessee State. Broadcasting high school football here is so cool because the more you do it, the more you see kids move on to do big things, whether it's in the SEC or in the NFL. But Marcel Reed gets his first career start, goes 11 of 17, 178 yards, 2 touchdowns, 83 rush yards, and 1 touchdown. A great debut for Reed. Connor Wegman, for me, it's still his job, but Marcel Reed, in whatever they had packaged for him in that game, executed it very, very well and gave Aggie fans a lot of promise for the future. And Hake Brown, the former Lipscomb Academy quarterback, who actually went to Liberty to go play for Hugh Freeze. And then when Hugh Freeze took the job at Auburn, transferred over. Peyton Thorne throws 4 interceptions last week in a loss to Cal. Hank Brown gets the start against New Mexico. Started a little slow, but they found a groove, and he finishes 17 of 25 for 235 yards and 4 touchdowns. So shout out to the 2 local guys, Marcel Reed and Hank Brown, for crushing their starting quarterback debuts in the SEC. Let's talk about this 10% tax that Tennessee Athletics has placed on ticket prices.
Quickly first, we'll take a phone call because apparently somebody wants to shame Jackson out of his BVS. Let's go to Tommy up next.
How you guys doing this morning?
We're good, buddy.
Jackson, I just want to tell you one thing. Your paranoia is driving me crazy, dude. When the battered ball syndrome started, it was a reflection on all the 5 coaches change that we had. Josh Heupel and his coaching staff has not given anybody any reason to get all worried about what they're doing in the ball game. They make changes at halftime. He's had our team prepared. All the anticipation of winning only to lose was during all those miserable coaches that we had before Heupel. So get over it. You're going to be okay. Heupel's going to have us prepared. He's going to have us ready to play. He's going to make any changes at halftime that need to be made, and we're going to win this ball game. We're going to win the ball game by 2 touchdowns. So get over yourself. It'll be okay, buddy.
Get over yourself, Jackson. Tommy is right. Get over yourself.
Yes.
Thank you, Tommy.
I agree. My paranoia is probably a little overdone, but Josh Heupel's 2022 South Carolina game had me curled up in the fetal position.
That is a particularly traumatic loss. But that's not like a Heupel thing. I mean, the defense is a problem, and Spencer Rattler going just bananas all of a sudden after having a pretty pedestrian year to that point. And, of course, the Hendon Hooker ACL tear. Like, all of those things. Your national championship hopes being dashed in a season where you had no national championship aspirations going in.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody was talking about him that way, and then especially when they make the quarterback change, and then Hooker turns into this thing that nobody could have expected, even Josh Heupel didn't expect. To have the heights come crashing down that suddenly, that is traumatic.
That was never a team that had championship depth or talent, especially on defense and on the back end.
No, but you got so caught up, or at least from my... I don't know how Tennessee fans felt, but you got so caught up in, oh my God, they're good.
Yes, they beat Alabama in a shootout, and you look down the stretch at nothing but winnable games and a path to 11-1, which would have put them in the playoff. And of course you have to have those conversations with yourself. But yes, in the end, reality kind of came back around in a big way in that South Carolina game and showed us that that was not a Tennessee team that was ready yet to compete for championships, but was it a sign of what was to come? And that is coming around to this year with a team that actually has the depth defensively and especially up front that teams that compete for championships have to have.
Also, last year's Florida game. They should have won.
That one hurt.
Last year's Alabama game.
Last year was a reset.
All right. Vols. The athletic department for Tennessee is going to charge a 10% talent fee, is what they're calling it, on tickets to help pay athletes as a part of the new revenue sharing plan that is going to begin in 2025. It's being reported on as if it's the first of its kind. I haven't seen another, certainly Power 5 institution put something into place just like that. They sent out an email apparently to football season ticket holders. What was that, Tuesday, when this news first broke? Quote, part of an extensive plan to continue our dominance in college athletics and build something like never seen before, end quote. That is from Danny White in an impassioned 4-minute video that was also included in the email. I did not see the video, nor did I get the email because I'm not a Vols season ticket holder, but this is what's being reported. So, in addition to the 10% increase on all ticket invoices, season tickets, single game purchases, as well as donations for those seats, Tennessee will add an average increase of 4.5% on all football tickets. This is the cost of being good. This is Tennessee, again, being on the forefront of something that just about everybody is going to try and explore the viability of and try to implement it. Tennessee's just the first to do it. So, while I'm sure there was some initial reaction, because it sounds like you guys can tell me, what did football tickets cost when you were students at the University of Tennessee?
$10.
Yep.
And they are now what?
$30.
Okay, that's not an insignificant increase. And also, they don't get the full season anymore, right?
Which is still
That was
crazy
how it was
cheap.
when I was in college.
By the way.
Oh, no, sure. Crazy cheap.
When I was in school, it was week to week. Like, you opted in. If you wanted to go to the game, paid $10 and you went to the game. I had friends at Auburn that were paying $300-$400 packages for half of a season to go as a student. So $30 a week is still insanely cheap for the seats you get in the student section in a top 10 football team.
To hear you guys say that, and I know it's 100,000 plus seat venue, so there's a little less cost that has to be shouldered by the students. But like, for example, the hot ticket where I went to Indiana. Hot ticket when I went to college was Indiana basketball. They could not sell football tickets. In order to get basketball tickets, you had to buy a package that included football season tickets, of which, of course, no one would attend. And then you got put in a lottery for the basketball tickets. And Indiana wasn't national championship caliber, but they were good enough. They had Cody Zeller. They had Victor Oladipo. They were the number one team in the country my sophomore year in college. And so they were after the Kentucky win, with Watford for the win over Anthony Davis, the ticket prices went crazy, and they put the students in a lottery that way. And this was 10 years ago. So that Tennessee was not doing something like that already with students surprised me, but I guess there's also been that, it's been a 15, 20-year lull where they're probably not getting as much student activation as they will now, of course, because this is a real thing. This is a real quantifiable thing. This is a playoff caliber team. So everybody's bearing the burden of it to some extent. And I know that there is for some people, it's not an insignificant increase, I'm sure. So I don't want to be dismissive of that. But it is also the cost of winning in today's college football. It's just a constant arms race, guys. Like you're doing the NFL. I know there's technically a cap on name, image, and likeness and stuff like that. But it's kind of the
no
NFL.
Cap on name, image, and likeness.
At all?
No cap on name, image, and likeness. Now,
No, excuse me. A cap on
revenue sharing.
revenue sharing.
Yes, like with student athletes, they're talking about that neighborhood of 20 million.
Sure.
NIL, you got a donor wants to pay a kid 15 million, he can do whatever he wants.
Apologies. That's what I meant to say on the revenue sharing, which is why this is being done.
Yes, they're looking to add ways to fundraise to pay student athletes. And Danny White talked to The Athletic about this in an interview where he said there is donor fatigue because most of that money just comes from donors, just shelling out cash. They've got to find different avenues to do this. And I am finding the people that are complaining about this the most are not Tennessee fans. Tennessee fans are saying,
they're all in.
Take my money.
Yeah.
You kidding me? $100 ticket, paying $110 to get better football players?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, please. Take my money. That is, at least from my perspective, maybe I'm wrong, and I'm sure there's some Vols fans that are saying, are you kidding? I got to pay more. But for the most part, I think the negative reaction has come from people outside of the fan base that is so desperate to win that they'll join the 1951 club, with Spire Sports and pay $20 a month to go towards an NIL collective. So Danny White doing something that I think we're going to see other programs follow suit with.
As long as you win, people are going to be fine with it. 615-737-1045, the number. Coming up next, the dumbest thing in sports this week. Jackson, do I have something to give away?
You do. Find out next.
No, find out now. I'm going to sit here and wait until you tell me what I have to give away. What do you mean find out next? You know I'm coming to you at the end of this segment every time to tease the giveaway. What do I have to give away? Reach in there. I want to see you do it. Reach in there and pull out something for me to tell these people that they have to win coming up next.
I missed this. 4 tickets to see Falling in Reverse this Friday at First Bank Amphitheater.
How hard was that? 615-737-1045 is the number. If you keep it up, I'm going to send your ass to the bench. Go to break.
11:04. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. The Titans are turning their attention to Week 3, facing the Green Bay Packers at Nissan Stadium on Sunday, with Malik Willis likely getting the start at quarterback for Green Bay. Brian Callahan is set to meet with the media at noon. You can hear it live right here on The Zone. In NFL news, the Dolphins have placed quarterback Tua Tagovailoa on injured reserve with a concussion. Tyler Huntley and Skylar Thompson are the two quarterbacks on the roster for the Dolphins. The Colts placed defensive tackle DeForest Buckner on IR with a high ankle sprain. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Sure is. 615-737-1045 is the number. It's presented by Martin Lawnscapes. MartinLawnscapes.co is where you go for the best landscaping, hardscaping, whatever your needs, aeration, and overseeding. MartinLawnscapes.co. So, Jackson, what can they win if they give us the dumbest thing in sports this week? 615-737-1045. By the way, if you've called in to talk about Tennessee or the Titans, we will also get to you too, but we do need to do the dumbest thing in sports this week, as is the custom.
4 tickets to see Falling in Reverse at First Bank Amphitheater this Friday.
615-737-1045. The dumbest thing in sports this week is Fowler Nicolosi, which I know is just the last name of the Colorado State quarterback, but I can't find his first name, nor does he deserve to have his first name read after one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. So, this Colorado State-Colorado game that we were hoping for a bit more drama, right? Colorado runs Colorado State off the field. They're trying to drum it up after last year's near upset of Colorado by Colorado State at the very early stages of the Colorado hype. So, Deion Sanders, they're in the middle of this game. Braden Fowler Nicolosi is this quarterback's name for Colorado State. And he's in the middle of the game. He's running towards the sideline. Travis Hunter is in pursuit to run him out of bounds. And, not even because the quarterback didn't stiff arm Travis Hunter, didn't hurdle Travis Hunter, didn't do anything to warrant this reaction. But they meet at the sideline as Travis Hunter runs Braden Fowler Nicolosi out of bounds, and the Colorado State quarterback, to Travis Hunter, of all people, does the too small thing with his hand. And then they're jawing at each other a little bit on the sideline as both players run back to the huddle. It's one of the stupidest things I've ever seen. What is he doing? To Travis Hunter is arguably the best player in college football. He's unassailable right now. It doesn't matter whether you're receiver or he's not a gadget player on offense.
No, he's the best.
Full-time starting wide receiver and corner.
Doesn't leave the field.
Doesn't leave the field, but for maybe 2 or 3 snaps a game. What are you doing, Colorado State quarterback, with the too small? Are you out of your mind? That's the dumbest thing in sports this week.
Colorado took care of business. That game was a dogfight, triple OT last year, and Colorado took care of business to their credit. My dumbest thing in sports this week is John Currie and Wake Forest. If any people don't know, John Currie, the former AD at Tennessee that orchestrated the disastrous coaching search of Greg Schiano and everything that followed, is now the athletic director at Wake Forest. And Wake Forest had a home-and-home scheduled with Ole Miss for quite a few years. They played the first of that home-and-home just this past weekend, and they are not going to be playing the second of that home-and-home next year. And here's Lane Kiffin talking about why.
A very abnormal thing for Wake to do, so I put it in neutral words. You usually don't do that a year, in the season before. It's hard. There's not people to play. So it's why you do scheduling in advance and you make deals and you go and play there and they come back. And so, that was really not something, I would just say that's rarely ever done. I've never really heard of doing it, and it really puts us at a big disadvantage. And is what it is. Obviously wasn't appreciated very much, them putting us in that situation. And, we got to go find somebody, and most people are all scheduled up, and even when you find them, then you got to go pay them. So kind of unwritten rule not to do that.
So Wake Forest hosted Ole Miss this past weekend and then bought them out of the return trip, leaving Ole Miss without a game early in the 2025 season. Wake Forest then, in turn, scheduled a home-and-home with Oregon State. The Demon Deacons are going to go to Corvallis next year, and Oregon State makes the return trip in 2029. So, Wake Forest pulling the rug out from under Ole Miss after hosting them and not fulfilling their end of the home-and-home is my dumbest thing in sports this week. And I get their reasoning was that the Oregon State home-and-home was more financially lucrative for them, but still, you just don't do that.
You can say my name.
It's your turn.
What's my name?
Just give us your dumbest thing in sports this week.
The Minnesota Twins had to release their 6th-round pick from this most recent draft, the 2024 draft, for aiding an opponent in a game that had playoff implication. He was tipping opponents. He was a catcher, and he was tipping off batters of what the pitcher was going to throw during a game, and was released.
That's a great way to get released in a hurry. Dumbest thing in sports this week. 615-737-1045 is the number. People are also submitting us as the dumbest thing in sports this week. Have you seen the latest news on Diddy, on the arrest?
Yes.
The reporting on it? Because it's the song, the open to the show is a Mace song, but Diddy is on the production of the song.
But is that his voice doing the it's about to go down at the start of the song?
I don't think so. I don't know. Perhaps we should fact check these things. Either way, we're being accused of capitulating because we have not changed the song, the intro to the show.
Maybe it is time.
How many bottles of lube and baby oil is it going to take before we change the show song? Because we're up
What?
You haven't seen the report. 100,000 bottles of baby oil and lube have been confiscated from the home of Sean Diddy Combs.
Oh.
As a part of the rate, yeah.
All right, we're getting rid of the song.
Yeah,
I have a submission.
I think we might
song.
have to change the song. I don't want to laugh.
That.
I don't want to laugh about it.
Yeah, not a laughing matter.
No, I'm uncomfortable. That's why I'm laughing. I don't know what to do.
We stopped doing the Kanye end of show. We were doing the Sunday morning.
Kanye is a Nazi sympathizer. Was inclined to.
So we took him off.
What is this?
Oh, new intro.
I'm not opening every day with Creed. You're not going to make me do this, are you? It doesn't feel right. I can't get into the vibe that I need to get into to start the show, but now I can't do it with the Mace song.
Jameson says you could just switch it to the original song they're pulling from. Yes, let's do that.
Okay. We can make those necessary adjustments. Tough scene. 615-737-1045. What's the dumbest thing in sports this week? For the opportunity to win some concert tickets, let's start with Frederick. What's up, bub?
Hello.
Hello. Did you just fall down and drop the phone?
You.
What happened? Did you sneeze?
Yeah. I'm actually at work, so got to keep it going, you know.
Okay.
Shooting the nail gun.
All right. Well, be careful.
I still got all fingers, so I'm working pretty good today.
What do you got for us?
It's the competitive. It's like not a repetitive thing about Will Levis. It's like a competition, so it's competitive. It's just every sports commentator, everybody's talking about that, and it's like more stuff to move on. That's old news, you know, and it's going to reoccur again, I'm sure. But hey, let's rock on and talk about something else.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, you speak for a lot of people there, Frederick, and remember to stay on hold if you want the opportunity to win the concert tickets. About the Will Levis dialogue, and we open the same way, but that's what it's about until he changes the dialogue. It's incumbent upon him to change the dialogue around him, not the people tasked with talking about him until he plays the next game. So I get your point. I get the fatigue, but he has to be the one to do the thing. Justin is next. Jackson, fade him up. What you got for me, Justin?
Hey, so my dumbest thing in sports this week is right tackle Nicholas Petit-Ferrer, with him becoming an analyst with Matthew Berry's fantasy life. You got to be self-aware, man. You can't be doing that. That's a bad look.
Yeah, it's pretty dumb.
That's the answer.
It's pretty dumb.
Yeah, it would have been my submission, but we talked about it yesterday.
He's going to be asked, what do you think his response is going to be today? What do you think Callahan's going to say about that? We're going to carry the press conference at noon. Yeah, if you missed it yesterday, Nicholas Petit-Frere was announced. Lucas is shaking his head. Was announced yesterday as a fantasy football expert for Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life newsletter and website that I guess he's going to be doing on his off days, on the Players' Day off on Tuesdays. But of course, NPF famously suspended for gambling last year. So even the association with a gambling/fantasy football outlet, probably not in his best interest, especially coming off a game where he allowed
not even just association, like
taking a paycheck,
a formal announcement as a content creator for said website in the midst of the season.
You think they asked him to put on the jacket and tie, or you think that's his Ohio State headshot? Because it looked
they just pulled a headshot.
It
I'm
looked
sure.
like they pulled a headshot. Anyway, let's go to Clayton next.
Hey, what's up, guys?
What you got?
Man, the Philly fans scorching Philly for the call on third down. I mean, 9 times out of 10, Saquon's going to make that play, and the game's over.
You know, I did see a lot of Eagles fans losing their minds about not Saquon's drop, but the 3rd and 3 call to throw the ball by Sirianni in that point, or at that point in the game. And they're just wrong. But I'll tell you, it speaks to a level of difference in the standard that they hold their organization to versus, how a lot of football fans would look at a lot of things. There's a reason that Nick Sirianni is coaching for his job not that far removed from being in a Super Bowl, because Eagles fans won't have it. They just won't have it. It's pretty crazy. All right, Frederick, Justin, or Clayton? Who's going to the concert?
Justin. NPF.
NPF, pretty bad. All right, congratulations to Justin. You win the dumbest thing in sports this week with what kind of tickets, Jackson?
Falling in Reverse, First Bank Amphitheater this Friday.
4 tickets to Falling in Reverse. All right, very good. Coming up next, we are going to have Adam Sparks from the Knoxville News Sentinel. It's a huge week for the University of Tennessee going against Oklahoma, heading to Oklahoma to take on Josh Heupel's alma mater. We'll see what the stakes are from his perspective coming up next. Welcome back to the song. Welcome back to the song. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. This is a banger. This is a banger. It's going to be overplayed. It's already been, overplayed because of the Twisters movie that it's on the soundtrack for, but it's a good one. Adam Sparks of the Knoxville News Sentinel joins us now. Boots on the ground reporting is here because we need to be made smarter about everything that's going on in Knoxville, Tennessee, as the Vols get ready to head down to Oklahoma this weekend for a night game against Josh Heupel's alma mater. Hey, buddy.
How we doing? Busy week?
Yes, busy indeed. It made me laugh. We played a clip of the press conference earlier, you asking Heupel, just how comfortable are you with the Oklahoma questions? Because we do not know him to be a very expansive human being, and his first answer to one of those questions was pretty damn good.
Yeah, usually, I guess for whatever reason, I get the task to ask him the question that he doesn't want to answer. And we all knew it was the Oklahoma question this week. Another reporter actually asked the first question, and you could tell from Heup's body language that he was sort of relieved, like, okay, I answered that, I'm done with it, and now we'll talk about the game. And then I came in with a follow-up just to needle at him a little bit because I know there's some tension there. And he handled it great. I mean, usually Heup says as little as he can, and he cracked a couple of jokes. He was very, very loose. Even joked about the crowd. I'd ask him about what it's like, playing or being in that stadium in Oklahoma, and he said, I'm sure they'll be quiet out of respect for me and what I did for Oklahoma football. And today, Brent Venables was on the SEC teleconference just a little bit ago, and he called that wishful thinking. So there's a nice banter between those guys, I think, which is good. I think, Josh Heupel obviously has mixed feelings about Oklahoma. He led them to a national title as a quarterback. Then he was fired as their offensive coordinator many years later. I think it was good for him, either maybe personally or probably tactfully, that he was loose this week about it. He has been so far, because I think if he had come in tight and tense and said on Monday, "Hey, I don't want to talk about that. I just want to talk about the game," it would look like he was tight going in, and I think that would filter down to his players. I think that would tell Oklahoma that he was tight, and instead he's sort of brushed it off. And I think it's good. The analogy I know has been used a million times this week, but it's sort of like having a breakup with a girlfriend, with the one you thought was the one, and then many years later, Josh Heupel probably think he with Tennessee he has as pretty or a prettier girl now than he did back then. And so once you get to that point, it's a lot easier to look back at the that first love and say, I was better that I got away from her.
Well, and even to kind of flesh it out a little further, to do a little pop psychology here, like his presence at that press conference, or just his demeanor at the press conference, at least from my vantage point, 100 miles away or whatever, Adam, like he seems genuinely excited about it, right? That this is a big full circle moment for Josh Heupel, beyond what it means for this specific Tennessee season and the actual implications of the game, because the Georgia game is bigger, the Alabama game is bigger, but this is a significant moment for Josh Heupel's football, his life in football, to come kind of full circle and have the opportunity to go into Oklahoma and try and win their first SEC football contest.
I think he is excited because of the team that he has. Now, if he loses the game, it'll be dreadful for him. It'll be worse than other losses. If he wins the game, it'll feel better than other wins. I'll take the analogy even further. He's going back to his class reunion, right? And he thinks he's got the prettiest girl in the room on his arm, and that's what he feels like he has coming back there. If he was coming in with like a 500 type team, if he was bringing Billy Napier's Florida team in there, he'd think, I don't want to do this. I don't want to show these guys what I've been up to since I left, since they kicked me to the curb. But instead, he's coming in with Nico. He's coming in with James Pierce. He's coming in with a top 10 team. So I think he can, have his chest out a little bit going back home to some extent, because he knows he has a really good team. I just, I wonder, everything is calculated with him. I just wonder if part of, I believe him when he says he's excited and he's very grateful for all that Oklahoma did for him. I wonder if there's a little bit of like softening up the enemy in that. He's going to go out there and he's going to smile, and they're going to play, I think, some video on the Jumbotron of his time there. They're going to honor the national title team. He's going to wave at the crowd and act like they're buddies. And then if he gets the chance, he's going to hang 40 on them and smile all the way back to the locker room. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen, but I feel like that's probably, like, if you think that Josh Heupel is going to go there and want to hug everybody in the stadium, that's just not the type of competitor he is.
At Adam Sparks is where you follow him. KnoxNews.com is where you can read all his great reporting on the Vols.
So, Adam, both of these programs came into the season with undeniably similar outlooks and expectations, right? 5-star quarterback, top 15-ish preseason ranking, college football playoff hopes. And then the first 3 weeks have gone sort of opposite directions. Oklahoma not necessarily inspiring, and Tennessee lighting the world on fire against teams that they're supposed to handle business against. My question is, have the first 3 games for Tennessee altered any expectations for you on what they can accomplish this season, or have you always been of the mind of, we're going to see what happens in Norman before making any of those type of declarations?
Well, I do want to see what happens in Norman, but I can say I went into the year saying this was probably a 9-3, maybe a 10-2 type team. I thought the over/under should have been 9.5 in terms of regular season wins. I think now it should be 10.5. I think this team is closer to 11-1 than 9-3. If they win on Saturday, I think this probably is an 11-1 type team, because I would pick them to beat Alabama or Georgia, one of the two. I think they could split those if they win on Saturday. If they win on Saturday, I think this is a playoff team. If they lose on Saturday, they can still get to the playoff, but it's going to be tough. I mean, so much is going to come down to those two quarterbacks on Saturday. I think the difference between the two programs right now, the two teams right now, is that Nico, so far, what we've seen is he has a supporting cast. Jackson Arnold doesn't have as much of one. Nico has the veteran offensive line. He has the veteran center in Cooper Mays. He has some depth at wide receiver. He has a proven running back behind him. He has what looks like is a really good defensive front on the other side. Jackson Arnold has the defense on his side. Oklahoma has a really good defense, but he has a rebuilt offensive line that's full of injuries. His center has been out with a high ankle sprain. One of his receivers is getting back, but they've been injured so far. They don't have a running game. And so I think you could see that play out in this game, because I think Brent Venables is going to try to fool Nico. Brent Venables' defenses are very complex. If you're not up to speed on things, he will exploit you. And so I think he's going to try to fool Nico, because I don't think that defense can overwhelm Tennessee's offense. I think on the flip side, I don't think it's going to be as much as fooling Jackson Arnold. I think Tennessee feels like their talent up front is better than Oklahoma's talent up front on the offensive lines. I think Tim Banks is more going to try to overwhelm Jackson Arnold, bring pressure, make Jackson Arnold think that he has the lesser team and the lesser talent, and force him into making bad decisions, because he hasn't made great decisions so far this year, but you can't blame him. He has not had a running game. He hasn't had receivers, and pass protection's been bad. And I think Tennessee will try to hammer home that message and confirm any doubts that he may have that he has more talent than what he has.
So is that the biggest matchup advantage to you, Tennessee's front against that Oklahoma offensive line in Jackson Arnold?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few matchups, but yeah, I think that's it. I think Jackson Arnold probably comes into the game thinking, I've got some issues here on this offensive line. The best that I played was last week when I was the leading rusher and I ran the ball and I got out of the pocket and I had to make things happen. And that's because I'm having to compensate for issues on my offensive line. And, if the first couple of drives in that game, this is important for both quarterbacks, but for Jackson Arnold, I think in those first 2 or 3 drives of the game, if Tennessee can get pressure on him immediately, it's going to confirm all those things that he has in his mind that it's going to have to be on him, that he's going to have to overcompensate, and that's exactly where Tennessee wants him.
I know it's not like the NFL, Adam, where we get to talk to players or we have more access to more players on a daily basis, but I'm just curious, like for James Pierce, who's not necessarily been stuffing the box score, right, but you can feel his presence on these pressures where he's disrupting quarterbacks and things like that. What has the dialogue kind of been from him through these first 3 weeks?
Well, yeah, he said absolutely nothing because he doesn't do interviews.
Okay.
James Pierce has not done an interview in almost a year. That's a whole nother story.
How the hell do you do your job without that? That would make me insane. Are you? What is that?
You got to go to a whole lot of people around him and tell stories from that standpoint. A couple weeks ago when he went back to Charlotte, I called up high school players that went against him in high school, like his opponents, which was a fun story. Sometimes you have to do those. But, Pierce respects Rodney Garner, the D-line coach, quite a bit. And I know they've been telling him, hey, listen, you don't have sacks. You're only playing like 12 to 15 snaps a game so far. But it's fine. You're being disruptive. Look, this play, and this play didn't work for the opponent because you brought pressure, because you took on a double team, because you got a hand in the face of the quarterback. So he's being effective. The sacks are going to come. The stats are going to come. And, for every game that he's only playing 12 snaps, that will help him play his 30th snap against an Oklahoma or an Alabama or a Georgia. And so, so far so good. As long as they're winning, I think he's going to be fine with what his role is.
Adam Sparks, Knoxville News Sentinel, knoxnews.com is where you can read him on the Tennessee Vols. Nico is the bigger fascination. Nico is the easier talking point or I guess just the more interesting talking point. But Dylan Sampson is as important a part of this offense and as productive a player in this offense as anybody else. How big of an impact do you expect him to have against this Oklahoma defense?
Yeah, I mean, Oklahoma has been good against the run. They're by far the best front seven that Tennessee has faced this year, much better than NC State. It's just going to have to be a balance, and they're just going to have to – Nico's going to have to make the right decisions. He's going to have to use Dylan Sampson for all that he can. And so far what we've seen, he's done that. Now, if you look back at the NC State game, early in that game he forced a ball that was the first interception he had ever thrown at Tennessee. And after that, it's because NC State was dropping 8 into coverage. And after that, he leaned more on the run game. He didn't trust his arm as much. He will take chances with the ball, but I think he learned well in the NC State game that if they're going to give you the run, take the run. And that's where Dylan Sampson's going to come into play.
We were talking earlier today about Tennessee on the road in the Heupel era, looking back at that LSU game, the 11 a.m. kickoff in Baton Rouge a couple of years ago as the only really marquee toxic, hostile road environment win this team has. We saw them struggle a bit against Georgia that same season on the road at Alabama in the second half last year. Do you think there's anything to that about the issues with this offense, particularly on the road? And is there anything with the helmet communication that could maybe aid Nico and the offense with its tempo and its rhythm in Norman?
I mean, I think it's sort of on the edge of a reason why there's issues on the road. I mean, most of those losses on the road have come to top 15 teams. So they got beat by good teams. Now, a couple of them, you can put another reason, South Carolina. There's a lot of weirdness around that one. And Cooper Mays was hurt in the loss at the Swamp a couple of years ago. And so there are reasons. But I don't think necessarily it's the offense, and I don't think the helmet communication is going to make that much of an issue. I mean, helmet communication, I think they're telling Nico like one phrase or one sentence or one word. That's the most communication he's getting. I mean, I think occasionally he will get part of the call through that, but it's not really making that much of a difference. I don't think they're leaning on the helmet communication too much. This is sort of in that that area of, it's a top 15 team and it's on the road and it will be a loud crowd, but it won't be the loudest that they face. So if they win this one, I think it probably says that the narrative that Josh Heupel's offenses are not great on the road will probably sort of dissipate. If they lose this one, I think those will come up pretty quickly.
Either way, we'll be reading about it at knoxnews.com. Adam Sparks, he's the best in the business, and he's kind enough to give us some of his time. Thank you, buddy. Have safe. I assume you're going. Have a safe trip.
Yep. I'll be there. Good deal. Appreciate it.
All right, that's the main man, Adam Sparks. Lot of interesting branches off this particular. I mean, this is the biggest game of the week, right? This is the biggest game of the week. Game Day's going to be there.
Yeah.
Pate's going to be there. Like, this is the game.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, the storylines are there. The matchup is there. Oklahoma's first conference game in the SEC. Oh, yeah, it's the headliner for sure.
Oh, CJ just dropped off, and I was just about to take him.
Shame.
Pity. 615-737-1045 is the number if you would like to jump in. We've got some NFL headlines coming up next. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken, 615-737-1045. Time to get by with a little bit of NFL headlines. You got it? Are you ready? You haven't done it in a while since I put you on the bench. Let's see if you got what you need to have for this segment.
It is once again time for Headlines with Lucas Panzica.
That music is longer than the headlines.
It's so long. It's so long. Such a long build-up.
What is it? What is it actually? You said it's like MSNBC's debate stuff.
It's
music?
MSNBC's
It's the debate intro.
Debate intros.
They're eating dogs in Springfield. No. In reality, the Miami Dolphins have placed quarterback Tua Tagovailoa on injured reserve. They did this yesterday, of course, after the concussion that he suffered in Thursday night's loss to the Buffalo Bills, which means he will miss a minimum of 4 games, which also means that the Tennessee Titans will see either Skylar Thompson or Tyler Huntley, the former Pro Bowl quarterback of the Baltimore Ravens, who they picked up from the Ravens practice squad a couple of days ago, as the Titans will be in Miami for Monday Night Football the week after they play the Packers.
Do you know what's happening right now? The Tennessee Titans are being the beneficiaries of injury luck. They're not the ones hurt. Everybody on their schedule is getting hurt. DeForest Buckner just got shut down yesterday for at least 4 games, which means that at minimum...
Thanks for taking a headline.
Shut up.
Most of the headlines are injuries. There's a lot of injuries.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, how the turntables, Titans aren't the ones, knock on something.
Knock on that wood.
Dealing with injury at this point. Jordan Love is not going to come into Nissan Stadium. We will see. Well, we don't know for
you
sure.
Don't know that.
But either way, a diminished Jordan Love at best is what the Titans would see if Malik Willis isn't the starting option. Right now, it's Malik or a banged-up Jordan Love. DeForest Buckner, their first AFC South game in Week 6. The first opportunity that this team gets at a crack at a divisional opponent, and the only opportunity that they'll get for 6 more weeks. Their best defensive player. By the way, have you seen the Colts run defense?
Yeah.
It's nightmare stuff.
That's what I was going to say. DeForest Buckner placed on IR with a right high ankle sprain. And it's a defense that's allowed a league worst 474 rush yards through the first 2 games to the Texans and the Packers. That was a big piece of the way they lifted the burden off Malik Willis's shoulders in terms of the Green Bay Packers winning last weekend. Joshua Jacobs ran for over 150 yards at Lambeau Field against the Colts. That defense has been porous in the run game, and that figures to be something the Titans will be better with against the Packers on Sunday if the first 2 weeks are any indication. But yeah, big injury blow to Indianapolis with Buckner on IR. Another injury, Isaiah Pacheco, the Chiefs running back, is out for 6 to 8 weeks, and the Chiefs have brought back Kareem Hunt, who they initially drafted out of Toledo, started his career in Kansas City. Now they have added him to their practice squad, but they're just looking for running back help as Pacheco broke a fibula last week against the Bengals.
Yeah, that's one of the most significant injuries to date, because a broken fibula is not, a short-term solution here. Between that, it's not as big a deal as Tua's concussion thing, because of course, you're talking about a brain injury versus a broken bone for a running back, a quarterback for a team that should be competing for a Super Bowl or thinks it's capable of competing for a Super Bowl. But he's a huge part of how they play football. Now, is Andy Reid going to be able to Shanahan his way out of into a Jordan Mason type situation? Are they going to create the next Isaiah Pacheco? Because Pacheco is famously, a 7th-round pick?
A 7th-round pick after they spent a first on Clyde Edwards-Helaire out of LSU. Now, Edwards-Helaire's situation is a complicated one, right? He's on the reserve non-football injury list for PTSD-related issues. And he's talked openly about that, about PTSD and mental issues throughout his football career. So he revealed that earlier in July, that he has dealt with PTSD and the Chiefs have helped him get through it. So, yeah, it's been a wild ride at the running back position for the Chiefs under Andy Reid.
What else you got?
Justin Fields is going to start for the Pittsburgh Steelers this weekend. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, I believe. Russell Wilson, going to work to get back. We'll see what the injury report is later on this afternoon. But at some point, we got to start wondering, do you just stick with Justin Fields? Ben Roethlisberger on a podcast this week said they should just stick with Justin Fields. He's played fine, right? He hasn't been giving the game away, which we've talked about a lot. There hasn't been a lot of spectacular quarterback play across the NFL.
No, in fact, scoring is down significantly.
Oh, yeah.
Significantly league-wide.
But Steelers are 2-0. 18-10 win over the Falcons, 13-6 win over the Broncos. So they've managed to be 2-0 despite scoring less than 20 points in each of the first two games.
They're going to do it again.
They host the Chargers this weekend. And I don't know if you're seeing all these pictures coming out of the Chargers and the way that they're lining up. And, not a lot of folks around here, I'm sure, have been watching every minute of Chargers football in the first 2 weeks.
I can't say that I have been. But although there's enough Titans on their roster, I probably should be.
They are a different football team, the Los Angeles Chargers, as expected, with Jim Harbaugh as their head coach. On that, though, Justin Herbert does have a right ankle issue. Jim Harbaugh said today that he's feeling much better. Easton Stick will start if Herbert can't play, but Harbaugh said it's too early to consider hypotheticals when asked about the possibility of him not playing on Sunday. So just something to monitor. Is an injury that took place in the third quarter last week of the Panthers' 26-3 win over the Panthers, or the Chargers win over the Panthers.
How about Titans legends Bud Dupree, Hassan Haskins, Elijah Molden, and
Christian Fulton.
Christian Fulton is playing well. There is no worse way to twist the knife on Titans fans than to say Christian Fulton is playing good football for another AFC team.
But for me, a bigger story is the reemergence of J.K. Dobbins, who has had a phenomenal start to the season.
Looks great. And you know what? Everybody should be excited to see that because that guy looked special in Baltimore before the horrendous run of injuries that he suffered. And I didn't know after an Achilles to a running back, even though he's young, like that he would be able to bounce back, but he looks great early.
Yeah. And Quentin Johnston caught 2 touchdown passes last weekend. A guy who seemingly couldn't catch the football his rookie year, the wide receiver first-round pick out of TCU. This is not a headline, but my last thing, just a little tidbit for you. This year, so far, through 2 weeks, rookie quarterbacks in the NFL have 0 touchdown passes on 196 combined attempts. That is Caleb Williams, Bo Nix, and Jaden Daniels. Of course, Jacoby Brissett is the starter in New England, not Drake May. That is the most consecutive attempts by rookies without a touchdown to start a season in NFL history.
Ew.
0 touchdowns, 196 attempts combined between the 3.
Just bad football.
Yeah. Daniels has looked fun. He's had some rushing scores. Bo Nix had a great rushing touchdown in week 1.
He looks better because of the rushing ability.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And the interception that Bo Nix was throwing the other day.
Yeah, not great.
Really bad. 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to jump in. A reminder that the high school football game of the week is a matchup on Friday between Lebanon and Green Hill starting at 6:45 p.m. You can listen to Will and Brad Hopkins on the call, so you can always check out the high school football game of the week here on 104.5 The Zone. CJ has called back.
Hey, I just had a question for Lucas, actually.
You may.
Lucas, so when are you going to wear that Kentucky blue?
Yeah, coward.
Would make sense to wear it on Kentucky week, I suppose.
That he's only saying that, CJ, because it buys him more time to hope and pray that Caleb Farley ends up on a practice squad or an active roster so that he doesn't have to
No,
pay
the
his
count has
bet
been
off.
stopped.
And or so people forget.
Was it week 1 that the bet was stopped?
Yeah.
They were supposed to be signed?
Well, we didn't put any parameters on it, CJ.
No, we did. We did. See, we did. You did not. You tried to weasel your way out of them. CJ, are you a Kentucky fan?
No, I am not. I was just curious.
He's an accountability fan, which I can appreciate.
Which famously on this show we have 0 of. So thank God we have good listeners who will keep us accountable. Yes, Lucas, during the week of Tennessee-Kentucky, we'll have to, for a full week, wear Kentucky Wildcats gear. If I have to fund some of the gear, I will do so.
It, yes.
I will do so with a smile on my face. That's fine. There is no worse bet payoff that would punish Lucas and I equally, like making us, either one of us, wear Kentucky gear for a week. Tough scene. All right, coming up next, final hour, Brian Callahan's press conference next. Final hour is upon us. Brian Callahan is going to have a press conference here in just a few minutes. We'll carry it live for you, get you ready for the Titans and the Packers. First day of on-field work for the Titans this week. 0-2 the start. The Packers coming to town. Malik Willis probable at quarterback, and we will see what Brian Callahan has to say about the progress that he saw Malik Willis make as a quarterback, and then ultimately the progress that Matt LaFleur was able to capitalize on.
You make that sound like Malik was injured and is probable to play. Like, he probably will be the quarterback because Jordan Love was injured. Not he's probable to play as in an injury designation.
They had Jordan Love last week on the injury report as questionable. I have no idea what they're doing at quarterback. You know, and that's part of the gamesmanship.
Like Malik's not dealing with an injury.
Sure. I guess probability-wise, Malik more likely to play than the injured Jordan Love is how I should phrase it. That's a good correction by you.
Former Josh Heupel quarterback Jordan Love, yes. That's how people refer to him, yes?
What?
Yeah, people forget that. Heupel recruited and signed Jordan Love to Utah State as the offensive coordinator there.
What?
Yeah. Just a little...
I had no idea Josh Heupel was at Utah State.
Yeah, was the OC at Utah State before his time at Missouri.
Huh. How about that? Okay. So,
you learned something today.
I genuinely did. It surprised me.
The more you know.
Yeah, the more you know. So, Malik Willis, probably going to be the starting quarterback for the Green Bay Packers, coming back to face the team that drafted him in the third round in 2022. So, the level of, we talk about BVS, we have a commercial for BVS, battered Vols syndrome. Battered Vols syndrome, pretty non-existent as of late. Vols win a national championship in baseball, got a good football season going. Tony, they even try to sage away the bad juju at Nissan Stadium by bringing Tony Vitello and the baseball team out and playing Rocky Top in the damn stadium.
That's how you pander, baby.
I thought I was having a stroke. I was like, what is happening? Why are they playing Rocky Top?
Do you think I wonder where Will Levis was in that moment. Was he in the tunnel hearing Rocky Top being played in his home stadium?
He was on the field because they were getting ready to...
That's right. They were already on the sideline.
Yeah, they had already introduced... Well, they introduced the defense for obvious reasons. And then, of course, he does the thing again. But I'm sure he's not... I'm sure it's not his favorite thing in the world to hear Rocky Top at his home stadium for a different fan base that hates him. But either way, to keep his own fan base from hating him, he needs to play better against the Green Bay Packers, even though, and I know you don't want to hear it because I don't like saying it, but he did play better against the Jets than he did against the Bears. And that cannot be ignored because you need him to continue to make that progress. We talked about it last week. How much progress can you reasonably make in a week? And the answer was, looked better from a mechanics, timing, comfort standpoint, even though the right side of his offensive line was the one being caved in this time instead of the left side in week one. He managed a lot of these situations better. It is marred and negated almost. It's not negated, but to fans and media, it's largely...
It is.
No, because to them it's not. To Callahan... That cannot be. That's the differentiation. To us who are talking about this optically, I don't care if he played better. You did the thing again, dummy. To Callahan, he has to look at it as, all right, there is good football there. Besides the outlier, here's how he's getting better. And there is that. So, from week to week, how can Will Levis get better here? That's the thing that Brian Callahan is going to be answering questions about in just a few minutes from now.
I agree with you. I was the one saying there was undeniable progress from Will Levis Sunday, and people got really upset with me about it. But the point is, he can have as much progress as he wants. He can get better week to week to week, and if those plays still continue to be made and they lose games because of them, it does not matter, right? It doesn't matter. You got to cut them out no matter how well you're playing outside of those plays. Those are interceptions, turnovers. There are plays you can live with from quarterbacks, right? Those are not the type of plays you can live with. Like, quarterbacks are going to make mistakes. Pat Mahomes will make mistakes. Josh Allen makes a ton of mistakes that you can live with. Those are not the type of mistakes you can live with from a quarterback.
You do that to Josh Allen all the time. He does not make that as many mistakes as you allege that he makes.
He's a turnover machine.
That is so dramatic by you.
I need to find the stat that There's a stat since, I think, 2020 that nobody's turned the ball over more than Josh Allen other than like Trevor Lawrence. I'm telling you, there are some numbers that you can look at in total quarterback turnovers. Josh Allen is at or near the top of every list you can find in the last 4 or 5 years.
Sure, you just make it. It's a very weird thing.
I'm just
with you
saying.
and the Bills this year. You just a Bills hater. It's going to be awkward when I go to Buffalo and get questions from their fan base. Why does your producer hate our fan base so much? All we do is make money for people's charities. Why do you hate them?
You're obsessed with the guy. He's a great player. He also threw 18 interceptions last year.
Yeah, because he's a great player, and all he does is will his team to wins on a regular basis, which is something that I would love for the quarterback. I can live with. You know what, Will Levis? I can live with dumb turnovers if you are capable of willing your team to win.
Exactly. That's true. That's totally fair. Allen makes a ton of mistakes. He turns the ball over, but you can live with it because of the other stuff. But with Levis, I will say he did not let that turnover completely crater the rest of the game for him. I know that the next time he stepped on the field, he threw an interception on that deep ball to Burks. But that was the thing in Chicago. When things started to go poorly, they got worse and worse. And it was like he continued to sink in it. And that did not happen because that turnover happened early in the game on Sunday. He still put them in a position to win the game, leading them down the field, getting them inside the 10. I know he didn't see Ridley open down the middle of the field in what could have been a game-tying touchdown, but that was a sign of progress from Levis to not let the crippling mistake cripple him for the rest of the game.
So, the interception, is it on him? Is it no? Well, the question is, did he play better in the second half than he did in the first? Because I would say that he evened out a little bit, but anyway, well, let's hear from Brian Callahan. He's up at the podium.
Not this afternoon, but we'll have a couple guys that we may rest or limit, but don't see anybody likely missing time this weekend. So we're still in a pretty good spot. Again, normal nicks and bruises as we played a couple games now, and so there'll be some things, guys that are limited or sit and all those things. But as of right now, I feel pretty good about availability for this weekend. Other than that, I'll let you guys fire away.
After last week, NPF gives up 13 pressures. Is it just on him to be better, or do you start having to game plan to help him out a little bit?
It's both. I can do a better job helping, and then he can do a better job executing. And I think that they would all say the same thing. There's so many good rushers in this league, and there's good players, and there's no shame in that. There's no shame in getting help on either side. We did a little bit of it in the game. Probably should have done a little more of it, but yeah, there's a time and a place to help in the rush. There's a time and a place where we have to get 5 out in a pattern, and that's a part of it. And it's a kind of a give and take balance, but certainly not something that I'm not used to. I've had to help on both edges quite a bit over the years, and that's just a part of playing offensive football nowadays with these guys that play on the other side. So it certainly has work cut out for him with Rashawn Gary as well. So it's a challenging front to play against this week.
Peter was up here, I guess, earlier in the week. He talked about different techniques that Bill was teaching the O-line guys. Does that take maybe a game or two, even though they've been doing it off-season training camp? Does that maybe take a game or two to adjust a little bit to some of those techniques?
Yeah, I think all growth and improvement takes time. There's certain things that might be more natural than others for certain guys. It sort of varies player to player, and I think that those things come with actual game reps. You can do as much as you want in practice. You can simulate it. You play against your own team. But there's different styles and different body types and different rush counters, and there's a lot of things that go on. And for those guys, it's just banking of reps. Obviously you don't have forever to make improvement, but there does take some growth. There is some uniqueness to it, and some technicalities that only improve as you get more shots at it.
Does that mean that you and your dad and Will need to grin and bear it and be patient?
There's an element of that. There's an element of patience. There's an element of we got to get better fast. There's some urgency to get better, and I think that's the most important point, is that the urgency to improve quickly is what makes teams in the NFL. If you can get better quickly, you can make improvements, make corrections, and not repeat mistakes, you're going to have a pretty good chance to improve at a rate that's going to give you a competitive advantage. But we need to improve, certainly. There's a patience part, but there's also an urgency part where things got to get better quickly.
Along those lines,
when you went back and watched this past week's game with Will, and you point out, maybe the ball would be better here than there, those sorts of things, was that considerably less than after watching the week 1 game?
Yeah, I thought everything that Will's improvement from week 1 to week 2 to me was noticeable. Everything about how he moved in the pocket, where he had his eyes, just everything about playing the position was better in week 2. I think offensively as a whole, there was a lot of things that were better from week 1 to week 2. We got to get a lot better between week 2 and week 3. And that's just that's the nature of the NFL, especially in the early part of the season, is how quickly you can improve your team and what you do well. I'm really pleased with how he played for the most part, and that didn't change after we watched the tape. And every week you're going to go through with a quarterback, and there's going to be a handful of plays that you could say, hey, what if you could have gone here or here? Here's some things that could have been different. So that's a normal process, whether you throw for 350 yards or 150 yards, that doesn't change. So that part is pretty consistent. But I thought that Will made a really nice improvement from week 1 to week 2.
Sometimes we conflate the short passing game with the quick game, and you guys are near the bottom of the league in terms of passing plays that develop in 2.5 seconds. But the short passing game has been effective for you so far. So is there an emphasis on speeding up the short, quick game in order to take some pressure off the offensive line?
That's all part of the equation. I would say sometimes what gets confused, gets taken off as either quick game or short passing is, we pushed the field a couple of times in that game where we didn't have the routes or we didn't have the time to get to the routes to develop, and the ball gets checked down. And sometimes that gets looked at as a quick game, or we're not throwing the ball down the field. No, the call is to throw the ball down the field, but the pressure, the coverage, whatever it may be, the ball gets checked down, and so it comes off as a play where the yardage isn't far down the field, but the intent was to throw the ball down the field. Sometimes you don't get that, and part of Will's growth and development has been that I tell him all the time, I'll call as many deep shots as I can during the game and deep play action and things. As long as if it's not there, we don't force it and we check the ball down when we have a chance, and then I'll call it again. And so sometimes those things get skewed, but yes, there is an element of the quick game that does help when you're having struggles up front, that you don't put those guys in position to have to hold on to blocks for long periods of time. And so that's definitely something that we mixed in and will be part of what we do offensively.
With Hopkins, and I think it was 26 snaps, I know you're trying to get as much as you can when he's on the field, but when you're calling these plays, there are times when he's open, he may not have been the first read, but how do you approach that with Will to get him to make sure that you're maximizing when Hopkins is out there on the field?
Yeah, that's on me to get him as the primary more often than I have. There's going to be plenty of that as we move forward. And the other part of it for Will is that I don't ever tell Will who to throw to. You start forcing balls to players because you feel like you need to get it to them. That's when you can get yourself in trouble as a quarterback and as a play caller. So you call the plays you think are best suited for what you're going against. You have players in mind you're trying to get the ball to, but ultimately, the progression dictates where the ball goes, and anybody can get the ball in any given play, and that's the part of it that I think matters most. So yeah, there was some plays that Hop was the primary. He was covered as the primary. The ball went elsewhere. But that's on me to do a better job of putting him in position to get the ball more frequently. And again, as he's felt good and feels healthy and ready to roll, that role will increase, and you'll see more of that.
There were some plays where he may not have been the primary but was open. Do you go over that and just say, hey, man, make sure you look there? How do you handle that part of it?
Just like you would any other play where the ball goes. And sometimes plays look open because the ball gets thrown and guys react. Other times they are open. That's a real part of it. And so you go through the process and you say, why'd you throw it here? Here was the read. Sometimes it's as simple as read one was open and we took it. And then, sure, he's coming open on a shallow cross across the field. He's the third part of the progression. And had we gotten there, the ball would have likely went there. So that's how those things work. And you just coach through those processes, pointing out what coverages these certain routes come open on, and try to have a better feel the more reps you bank on concepts. But yeah, I never tell a quarterback who to throw it to because that clouds their judgment and their vision on what we're trying to get accomplished schematically. And so it's more on me to put Hop in the spots where he's likely to get the ball.
The third highest first read rate in the league right now. Is that by design? Is that something that you're wanting to see him get through his progression more? And how much of the time he has to do that, is that an impact on it as well?
It's a combination of things. We've had some first reads that have been open. That's part of it. There's some times where he's been forced to get the ball out a little bit quicker because of some of the pressure. And then some of it may be work through the progression. It's just kind of a threefold approach, and I would say that there's every game is going to have those plays in it. That's not like unique to a bad game or a good game. That's every game, and so you just keep coaching through the progressions and keep talking about it, and eventually those plays, as you bank reps, they become more comfortable, and quarterbacks are able to get from 1 to 2 to 3 a lot faster because they've gotten reps banked on the concepts, and that usually comes with time and repetition.
80% 3 wide. I don't know what it was week 1, but you got 2 inactive tight ends. Mm-hmm. Is a time going to come where you need more there, or is it advantageous depth, or can they help you on special teams where you're struggling?
Yeah, those are all things that we've had conversations about on where those guys could help us. They sort of play the same roles as linebackers do in special teams coverage for the most part. And we got some linebackers that do a pretty good job. Right now they're advantageous depth, I think is the way to put it. They're guys that we think can develop into good players and can help us. We may need them at some point this season, so they're always on the ready for that. And again, we've had a handful more of our heavier personnels pop up in the second half last week, and if that's something that we potentially lean more into, they could find some roles. So as of right now, with everybody healthy, they're depth and developmental players.
Probably along the same lines, but hindsight 2020, you guys let go some kind of key special teams guys in the 53. Any regrets at all that maybe you should have had a guy and given some of the special team situations that have popped up?
No, not from a personnel standpoint. I felt pretty good about the guys that have been in there and the guys that we kept. So I don't look back at that with any regret on the roster construction.
Heavy dose of Josh Jacobs, and how were they able to run the ball so well Sunday when people knew it was coming?
Two things. One, Josh Jacobs is a very good player. I think they do their offensive line, I think, is probably underrated. I think they do a nice job both in the run and pass pro. And then ultimately, I think that offensive staff there is high level. They do a really good job. Matt's an excellent play caller and play designer and schemer, and put his guys in great position to have a chance to win the game, and they executed it very well. But I've always been a fan of Matt and the things that he's done offensively and the way that he leads that team there. I mean, they've done a really nice job for a number of years now. So that's the biggest reason to me is they got good players and a good scheme, and they did a nice job making it come to life. And I thought Malik did a really nice job of keeping the team in position to win. He didn't turn the ball over, and basically executed exactly as I'm sure he was asked to. So really a tip of the cap to all those guys on offense. They did a great job on their offensive staff, on their offensive roster of executing a well-designed plan.
I know different roster means different schemes, but when you watch that, how similar was what they were doing with Malik to what you might have envisioned doing with him?
There's definitely some things that they did with him that we did elements of as he was here. But yeah, they've opened up some things that they probably don't do a lot of with Jordan Love, but that Malik has a unique skill set for. And I thought it was really well designed with the quarterback runs, the RPOs, all the motions and the different styles of runs. It was very, very well designed.
Since the trade at all?
I did not. I know Bo and Nick both have. They both wished him luck before his first start, and I'm happy for him that he had a chance to go play. That was pretty cool to see. I mean, everyone knows Malik. Malik's a phenomenal person. Loved being around him, loved having him here, and he went to Green Bay for the opportunity that he's been given now is to play, and he's done a nice job of it.
Passing stats are down across the league compared to years past. I'm curious why you think that is and how you view your play calling against that trend.
Yeah, this is probably a much deeper conversation than right here for a quote, but I think the proliferation of teams playing with shell defense, with two high defenses, they're doing a really good job of stopping a run with two high defenses. A lot of it has to do with the front movement. Teams are doing a really good job of keeping everything bottled up. I think the difference in quarterbacks, there's a lot of young quarterbacks playing. I think that's part of it. It's early in the season, which is the other part. There's some teams finding their footing. But yeah, there's a lot of reasons I think that there's a down offensive performance. I think part of it is just the style of defense has changed in the last couple of years, and they're doing a nice job on defense. And I think you see the mismatches that you have. I mean, these defensive lines, it's every week. I feel like you're going against defensive lines that have 3 and 4 guys that are real problems, and they're good. They're hard to block, and that's another part of it. So that to me is a very, 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 very general note on what I think it is. I'm sure there's lots of opinions out there, but I think there's a definite shift in the defensive structures and how they're being played.
Traylon's gotten quite a few snaps in the first 2 games, only has 1 catch for 2 yards. What's kind of been the problem in getting him unlocked, so to speak?
I wouldn't say that it's been a problem. It's just the ball has sort of gone elsewhere. I mean, there's been a couple of times, just like D-Hop, where he's been open and the ball's gone somewhere else. That's just sort of part of playing receiver in an offense where there's 3 receivers on the field. But yeah, I would have loved to see him come down with that catch on Sunday. That would have gone a long way to probably not asking that question. I think there's a production part of it that's we got to find a way to get him some production as well. And again, I think just the general passing game has to be more productive. And once we get to that point, I think it'll even itself out eventually. But through 2 games, we've not been as good in the passing games I think we're capable of.
Built in a day, a lot of new coaches, a whole bunch of new players. How hard is it to stress patience and trust in everything to both your players and also yourself?
I don't have any problem with it. I don't mean that to come off the wrong way, but I'm very confident in our process. I'm very confident in our coaches. I'm very confident in what we do and how we do it. That also goes for the players. I'm incredibly confident in the players that we have, the players that we've added. I believe very much in what those guys stand for what the locker room represents, for how they come to work every day. All of those things, we don't have the tangible results yet that come with wins, but all of the other things are working the way they're supposed to. And that part gives me a ton of faith in the process. And I actually just talked to our leadership group today that, the definition of faith is belief in something without proof. And right now we don't have any proof that we're doing things the right way when it comes to wins and losses, but that's coming. And I believe in all those things very, very much. And I believe in my ability. I believe in the ability of people in this building to make sure that we get things squared away and keep pushing forward. So that part I don't have a problem with. There is some growth. There's some things that we have to get better at in a hurry. There's a patience part, but again, like I said earlier, there's also an urgency part that goes into whatever we have to get better at. We have to get better at it fast, because there's still good teams every week we go out there. There's good teams. You don't play right, they're going to beat you, and we got to be on the other end of that where we take advantage of a team that doesn't do things the right way enough. And so it's a process. It's ongoing, but trust me, there's plenty of urgency to get to that landmark. And I would love to come in here on Monday after a win. I'd feel really good about that.
With Ernest Jones just to come in here, learn this defense as quickly as he has, and be a factor 2 weeks in?
Very impressed, but not at all surprised by that. I mean, he was a captain in L.A. He's a 4-year starter. He's a really good football player. And for whatever reason, they felt like that he was somebody that they could afford to let go of. And I'm glad they did, but I've played against him previously. I know what he's capable of, and to be able to add that caliber of player and person has been a huge benefit to our defense. And he's really done a nice job. It's a very different style of defense, and so learning a bunch of new things and new words, it's like learning a new language to some degree. And he's done a great job. So all the things I expected from him, I've seen, and it's been fun to see him get more comfortable and get to know the team better and really have fun playing football.
Got hurt, and so that may change things this week or next. But when they were both healthy in week 2, you still saw the similar split that we saw from them in week 1. Do you stand by wanting to get them as 50-50 as possible, or do you feel them kind of settling into different roles?
No, I do feel the same way. I feel like I would still like to get more touches for Tajay. I think one of the things we have to do is when we've gotten first downs, when we've gotten that first down, I think we've moved into scoring position just about every time. Our issue has been the 3 and outs and keeping drives alive. We need more. We need more opportunities. We need more drives. We need more first downs, and I think that'll even itself out over time. In a small sample size, it feels like there's a big disparity. I don't think over time it'll look like that at the end. And then obviously him getting hurt in the game skewed that some as well. So I do see it. I see Tajay as a really impactful player and a guy that we have to make sure that has his requisite touches to help our offense.
1-2, you have to hold back a little because I know he will play probably with a broken ankle if he plays.
Yeah, he's tough-minded. He's physically tough, and so when they have moments that require a little bit of restraint and some rest, we have to sort of save him from himself in that regard. And he doesn't like it. He does not like to rest. He does not like to take practice time off or game time off. But it's in the best interest for him as you try to make sure he's available and a viable option for 17 games.
Play just a handful of snaps Sunday. You anticipate that going up? Will a lot of it be based on matchups, opponent?
Yeah, I anticipate that going up, regardless of opponent or matchup. That should go up. We'll see how much. I hesitate to give numbers and all that, but yeah, that'll go up. You'll see more of Jamal this week.
Pretty visibly upset after the game the other day. Just this week, seeing him, talking to him, how's his body language been, his demeanor, all that?
It's been great. He's hurt. He does not want to put that kind of performance on tape. I think he's, I don't mean to say that it doesn't bother him, but that's the nature of the NFL. You're going to have bad plays, and you have to move on to the next one, whatever it is, whether it's the next game or the next play, the next series. And he's done a nice job of doing that. And so I think he's moved on. He's still trying to learn from mistakes, not to repeat them. And I think he's in a good place. So I'm really happy with the mental toughness he's shown, the resiliency he has shown. And that's playing quarterback in the NFL. It's every week. There's going to be things that you want back, and you got to respond. And I think that he will.
Quarterback is a design part of the run game. How much does that test, gap integrity, discipline, those types of things for you?
That's the name of it, is the discipline. You have to make sure your gap integrity is solid, because there's a lot of things working. There's motion. There's things trying to get you out of your gaps. There's a discipline and focus aspect of playing when the quarterback's involved in the run game, because you have to fit it right. You have to be assigned right. It's kind of your traditional option football, if you will, where everyone has keys and places they're supposed to be, and the disciplined teams play well against those styles of offense. And if you find yourself out of a gap or undisciplined, you pay for it. And that's a huge part of playing the quarterback run game in general around the league, is making sure that you're where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there.
How much is your corner play, and the fact that those guys can, stick with a guy, allow you to maybe load the box more when you need to against a guy like Jacobs?
I mean, those guys have played well for us so far. I think even the encouraging part is we have lots of room for improvement as well there. And I love what they bring. They do everything that we've hoped they would do when they came in here. And I think that's the cool thing about the players we brought in free agency, is that they've all come in and played the roles we envisioned for them at the level that we thought they would, which isn't always the case in free agency with Calvin and Tony and Lloyd and Cheeto and Legarius and Quandre. Those guys have all really come in and filled really roles at a high level for us. And that's encouraging. And I really think that those guys give us some flexibility in the secondary too, because they're who they are. We can do a lot more things schematically when you got corners that can go cover.
Do you prepare that you think Malik's going to be the starter on Sunday? Do you prepare for that?
To me, it doesn't matter. We have to prepare to go play the Packers offense, whether it's with Malik or with Jordan Love. Schematically, it varies a little bit, but at the end of the day, we have to do our jobs well. We have to execute, be fundamentally sound, and if you spend too much time worrying about that part of it, you lose track of what we need to be for our identity and our defense. Certainly, watch plenty of tape on Malik. Be ready for Jordan Love if he somehow ends up playing. We'll be ready for it. But you never just assume in this, that all of a sudden the guy's going to be out or not until you're told he's out. So we'll be ready for both players. Got plenty of film on Jordan from last year and from the first game, and you got film on Malik, and we practiced against Malik, so we know Malik well too. And but again, it's only going to be about how we execute, and I think that's the most important part, is not to get too enamored with who's behind center, but more about how we do our jobs.
NPF had a fantasy sponsorship deal announced this week. It's not, huh?
A what?
He's aligned with some fantasy.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah. It's not gambling, but it's in that genre, if you will. He's been suspended under the gambling policy before.
Yeah.
And it comes out the week after he's got I'm just wondering, do you have any feeling for the timing of that, or any concern?
No, I mean, usually I try to stay out of guys off the field businesses as long as it doesn't affect our team. But Yeah, he's grown up and he's free to, as long as it's not a violation of the NFL rules, he's free to enter into whatever business agreements he wants to, and that's his prerogative. I don't have any personal opinion about it. Guys have lots of other things that they do, and yeah, I'm sure the timing had nothing to do. I mean, I'm sure he didn't agree to it this week, so those are probably things that have been in the works for a while. Just the timing maybe feels weird, but I'm sure it's something that has been in negotiations or discussions for a while. So I have no real opinion about it.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay. I feel like I had to text them to get that question asked. Anyway, we'll recap coming up next what Brian Callahan had to say about a variety of different things. The Tennessee Men's Clinic is the best possible resource for guys who are dealing with erectile dysfunction. You want to make sure that you see the experts in the field rather than just going to a conventional doctor, because they may not have access to all the different protocols that you can use to make sure that you can get the situation corrected. You do not have to go through irreversible surgery to treat your ED before you have talked to the experts at the Tennessee Men's Clinic. They specialize in men's sexual health issues. It's all they do. It makes them the experts in the field. They have access to multiple protocols and options to treat your ED based on your specific needs and what's going on in your body. Don't trust your health to an online pharmacy, and don't feel like you are out of options. We want you to understand all your options for treating ED. The Tennessee Men's Clinic protocols are patient-centered and customized to your needs. They have treatments for everything from low testosterone to treatments that increase size and stamina, ED, and everything else in between. Bottom line, no one has more expertise and experience in successfully treating men's sexual health issues than the Tennessee Men's Clinic. So visit them online at TennesseeMen'sClinic.com or call them today, 615-208-9090.
I love living in Middle Tennessee. We've got great restaurants, entertainment, sports, and one of the nation's top Ford dealers right here in our backyard. Two Rivers Ford. Remember that name. Two Rivers has been a staple in our community since 1983. They're locally owned. They have a non-commissioned sales team, and they sell below MSRP. They've been doing business with integrity for decades. Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer.
All right, so we got a shorty here because the press conference went long. A handful of things to address. It was the correct answer by Brian Callahan, right? That's his off-field business. Now, the question was not asked in a way that I guess that I was looking for the answer on NPF specifically in the fantasy football stuff, because there's a lot of more important football stuff that was covered, of course, and the NPF thing is ancillary. But I want to know if he asked. I just want to know if NPF asked somebody before he did this, hey, are you guys cool with this? Just so you know, I've got a gambling suspension in my background. This doesn't violate any NFL rules, me being a fantasy football expert for an outlet. But just, hey, just so you know, just to do the thing that you should do in a professional setting, I would like to know if he asked.
Does it sound like he did?
It does not. It doesn't sound like Brian Callahan had any earthly idea what we were talking about.
And didn't seem to mind either. Like, guys can do, whatever, as long as it doesn't violate NFL rules.
Which I agree with.
Yeah.
I agree with. Except this specific player who is underperforming and has a gambling suspension needs to get clearance before doing something like this, I would think. Or at least, hey, what would you think about this if I did it? He can do it anyways. He's an adult. He can make his own choices. But that's a small piece of a much larger press conference with a million different football things to break down there. Trying to get Hopkins more involved. Brian Callahan is taking onus on him as the play caller for not getting Hopkins more involved. So that's something to keep an eye on. If you go back and look at the tape, there are opportunities that Hopkins is open. There's several opportunities where he's waving his hand for the ball. I do think there's something to, he's the security blanket, but also Levis has to get used to Hop now in this new offense and his role, because it's different now.
Get used to DeAndre Hopkins not being the only option to bail him out.
Sure.
At any moment.
You can't just look at Hop and throw it up, right? So that's the acclimation process to this. Now, because the press conference went long, this is a short segment. Lucas is going to take you through the rest of the way with the polls. I'm going to scurry over to practice because Will Levis and open locker room is everything that lies ahead. So we will do all of those things. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. While we break down everything about the team here on 104.5 The Zone, let's take some time to break down one of the best teams in Middle Tennessee. That's the Two Rivers Ford team. Two Rivers Ford is really a rare kind of Ford dealership because they're one of the largest volume Ford dealers in the entire country, which makes you think they might be some kind of corporate dealership. But they're not. Two Rivers Ford is locally owned and operated. They've been around for over 4 decades right here in Middle Tennessee. And the Two Rivers Ford team does business the right way. They have a non-commissioned sales staff, so there's never any pressure. They sell below MSRP on all their new non-specialty Fords, and they treat every customer like family. And a great team always knows how to adapt, which is why Two Rivers Ford is known for offering every kind of shopping experience available. You can shop on the lot with their non-commissioned sales staff. You can do the whole transaction online and get your vehicle delivered like I did. There's a reason that a local dealership in Middle Tennessee has risen to become one of the top Ford dealers in the nation. Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer.
Wrapping things up on a Wednesday, Buck off to Titans practice as they prepare for the Green Bay Packers at Nissan Stadium on Sunday. Getting ready to do the polls, but real quick, a lot of video coming out from local Green Bay media from Packers practice. Not a padded practice today, but Jordan Love is out there. He's doing warm-ups. He's running around in his jersey with no pads on. So just something to note as we trend towards Sunday with Malik Willis still likely being the starter against the Titans at Nissan Stadium after playing and winning against the Colts last weekend, but they did not place Jordan Love on injured reserve, and he's out there today in some capacity. So we'll continue to stay updated with that and see what the injury report looks like, which will come out later on this afternoon. Let's do some polls. What happened there? What's going on?
I had the wrong mouse in my hand. These are the polls, and they are presented by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. And my Twitter app just crashed.
Okay. What's the dumbest thing in sports this week? Polls, as Jackson said, presented by Two Rivers Ford. A lot of people are saying Titans special teams. Jitterbug says NPF getting a gig as a fantasy football expert. Chris says the Panthers benching Bryce Young. Browning says Deshaun Watson. The Panthers benching Bryce Young. It depends on the reason behind the benching. To me, if the reason is strictly performance and that they're looking for whoever gives them the best chance to win, then I do think that it's the dumbest thing in sports this week, because that is not an organization right now that seems to be in a position to be looking for the best chance to win. That's an organization that needs to be building around its number one overall pick at quarterback. If the decision was made in order to protect Bryce Young, then I could hear it out a little bit more. What I don't like hearing is Titans fans saying, see, the Panthers did it, so we should too. Should never use the Carolina Panthers as an example to follow. Jackson, you said your Twitter got back up.
Got it back up. Is this weekend the biggest moment of Josh Heupel's career to date? 56% going yes, 44% going no.
Personal, yeah, probably the biggest moment of his coaching career. Professionally, no. The win over Alabama at home, obviously a marquee moment for this program and for Heupel's coaching career. But if you're going with the personal side of things, then yes, this would be, I imagine, Heupel's biggest career moment, going back to the place where he played and coached for so long in Oklahoma.
What was your first reaction to Tennessee adding a 10% talent fee to ticket prices to pay players? Nick asked, will it apply to student ticket packages? Jeremy says, I'm glad Tennessee is willing to keep up with changing the landscape of college sports so that they can stay competitive.
A lot of people against it as well. I see Robert says, ridiculous. You're making a killing on football. Don't pass the buck on to the fans. Some Titans fan, I should say, on Twitter says, not a good look. Put a better product on the field to get fans into the seats, not make the diehards pay more to put a marginal product on the field. I see what you're saying, some Titans fan on Twitter, but that maybe would be true in recent years of Tennessee football. What Danny White is doing now is striking while the iron's hot, right? This is a top 10 team. If they win in Norman, this is a team that will be talked about as a championship contender, certainly as a contender to be in the college football playoff. So he's finding different avenues to fundraise and add to the revenue sharing pot that is now going to be the norm in college athletics. This is something that will start next year for Tennessee, the 10% tax, so to speak, on tickets. And listen, most Tennessee fans that I have heard from have said, no problem. Take my money. $500 ticket, you need me to tack on $50 to go into a revenue sharing pot to give us the best competitive advantage, then I think most people will be perfectly okay with it.
Where level is your BTS ahead of playing the Packers with Malik Willis at QB? BTS, for the people who don't know, battered Titan syndrome. 46% going, we're not losing to them. 32%, I'm in danger. And 22% at full-blown BTS.
All right, so some confidence there from the 46% that say, no way we lose to Malik Willis if he does start for the Packers on Sunday. 32% given the Ralphie from The Simpsons. Do we have that, Jackson? And 21% going full-blown BTS. Look, what Malik Willis did have against the Colts was the benefit of the run game. They were dominant. Colts have struggled to stop the run all year. Josh Jacobs was great. 150-plus rush yards on the day. His best day as a Packer so far in his first year in Green Bay. Titans have a better run defense through the first 2 weeks. What kind of different elements does Denard Wilson decide to throw at Malik Willis, similar to what he did to Caleb Williams, who didn't quite know what he was seeing yet? Obviously, Aaron Rodgers did. And now you get Malik Willis back in, who's still a young quarterback, who Denard Wilson obviously knows very, very well from his time defending him at training camp practices. So I think the confidence level should be high, given the fact that the Titans likely are 2-0, if not for disastrous mistakes like QB turnovers from Will Levis and 2 blocked punts in 2 games. If they are able to remove those from the first 2 games to the Green Bay game and keep the level of play up across the board, then yes, the Titans should expect to be able to handle Malik Willis and beat the Packers for their first win on Sunday. But we said that after week 1. Obviously, it's a big if after 2 weeks with this team, so we'll see what happens. We'll see if Malik Willis even plays for the Packers, something to monitor for the rest of the week. Are those the polls?
Those are the polls.
All right, and that's the show. We'll be back at it tomorrow. David Ubben will join the show at 12:20 to talk a little more about the Tennessee-Oklahoma game, look around the big college football matchups around the country, and we will continue to break down Titans-Packers in the lead-up to Week 3 on Sunday. Blaine and Zach coming up next on 104.5 The Zone.